Colts preseason football is upon us. So, what is there to look for in an important joint practice week ahead of playing the Ravens? Can the QB position start to come to fruition against Baltimore? And who do you, the fans, want to see most on the field on Thursday? Well, let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, as always, presented by the wonderful folks at Indianapolis Colts on SI.com. My name is Drake Wally, co-deputy editor for the site, co-host of the show, joined by the one and only Noah Gebert, analyst for the site, fellow co-host of the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast. Noah, dude, we're just a couple days away from football being played, where the Colts are finally going to take the field, and it's, training camp, great, joint practices, those are more important than training camp practices. But this preseason game and going forward, the next two after, man, these hold a lot of weight for a lot of people on this team, especially quarterback. How are you doing, man? And, are you excited to finally see some form of Indianapolis Colts football?
Yeah, I'm good, man. We're about halfway through camp now in terms of the amount of practices that they've got. And we're finally getting to see them against another colored jersey and see some actual live action, which is, I think we've mentioned this before, like the first time that I'll be previewing or reviewing an actual game. I mean, it's a preseason game, albeit, but I've just stuck with all these off-season episodes since Andrew moved on and I stepped in here. But every time I filled in before was also in the draft. I'm just ready to talk about what's going to happen in the game, and I'm ready to come back after the game and talk about what already happened out on the field instead of just talking about roster moves and practices and all that stuff. But we've got some exciting practices at least coming up, and a lot of things that we've learned in training camp. We've got the practices coming up. There's a lot that we need to go over, and a lot that's going to come to pass in the next few days that we're going to go over as we go on throughout the preseason.
Yeah, and look, anytime that I hear preseason football, I hate it, right? Like it's so unbelievably boring, and the guys that you pay to see, they're not out there. There's a reason that, preseason tickets are dirt cheap. It's because no one cares, typically. But again, this isn't just about quarterbacks, okay? You're covering this team. There's so many battles to watch. You've had key injuries that have happened at very important positions, linebacker, cornerback. So now you get to see what the depth looks like. You get to see guys who might step up, and they're battling for that next position to step up into. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I personally can't freaking wait to watch Colts football again. So, so Truett, kicking us off with a $2 super sticker. Thank you so much. You are amazing. You've been following this show, watching us for so long, since the start of it. Thank you so much, as always. Tina, hello. Donald joining us. Sean Conkright, absolute legend right there. Tony Pelletieri. Hey, guys, we are so happy you're all here at a very exciting time in the season where we're finally going to see the ball snapped with an Indianapolis Colts uniform on the field. So, before we jump in here, training camp. So quick synopsis, we'll each give a little something, but you've had everything from, DBs looking great, quarterback battles, or the quarterback battle, and each quarterback having highs and lows. You've kind of, I've had a chance to talk to coordinators and coaches and all that kind of stuff. It's been probably one of the most intriguing training camps, maybe the most that I've ever seen. What are your thoughts on what's transpired during training camp, which typically isn't anything too exciting, but when you've got a quarterback battle going on, I mean, that really ramps it up.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I wasn't really expecting when we got into training camp, and maybe I should have been expecting it a little bit, is just the young players on the roster that are really coming out and stepping up into big roles. Justin Wally's the obvious huge surprise there. Even outside in the first round, we got Tyler Warren, who I think we expected to come in and make an impact, but seems to be making an impact earlier than we even anticipated. A lot of people that are really going to step up into these roles. The new guys, Cam Bynum, Charvarius Ward, stepping in and making an impact. I know the national media is all coming and Grand Park is buzzing because all the national media is coming to talk about Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, but it's really a well-rounded roster that has a lot of battles in a lot of interesting places and a lot of people who are looking to be contributors, and it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up the young talent, because everyone talks about DeForest Buckner, Quentin Nelson, and I don't know how many people are talking about Kwity Paye, but when you're talking about like Colts media, Indianapolis media, guys like that, like Zaire and Charvarius Ward, even. I mean, he's a veteran, even though he's new. But it's these young guys, man. I love that you brought that up because especially on the defensive side of the football, it's loaded with talent and it's loaded with guys that are looking to make a statement, So, but yeah, we'll go ahead and get started here. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. So number one, this was something I noticed at camp. I actually wrote a piece on it following Saturday's training camp. And even though Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones just really didn't play their best football, Tyler Warren did. Now, everyone was talking about what he did on Thursday night, rightfully so. He hauled in a one-handed pass, knocked it up in the air as the dude is falling down. He hurls it in, grabs possession, falls to his side, and just is able to roll right back up.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one play, right? But holy crap, when you watch that in full motion, it's insane. You've even got, I think it's Cameron McGrone is literally behind Tyler Warren, and he's going like that. He's holding his helmet. He's like, how did that happen? And so Tyler Warren continued that momentum, caught 2 11-on-11 touchdown passes. He just looks he looks the part, right? He looks like he's going to make an impact on this offense. They've even been working him in at fullback. They've had him doing everything and even doing some special teams reps as a blocker. Yeah. So Tyler Warren, ladies and gentlemen, so far he is as advertised. And honestly, Noah, I mean, it was assumed that he would do this, but I don't know if, like you mentioned, I don't know if even I thought that he would be doing it, with 4 training camp practices left and joint practices ahead.
Yeah, I think it was assumed. I think it's really good to see those flashy plays, but I love just seeing just the volume that he's been getting in training camp so far with both the quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones seem to be finding him over the middle. Just very involved in the playbook and the calls, and he's getting a lot of targets in these 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 sessions. But yeah, obviously fun to see that spectacular stuff. That one-handed catch was the play of training camp so far, and I'm not sure it's going to be topped given how far we into training camp and just how good that catch was. If you haven't seen that, those clips are all over social media, the Colts social media pages, if you want to take a look at that. But yeah, that's exciting to watch. And you saw firsthand there on Saturday when you went to that training camp practice, just how often he's in there and getting involved. There's really no dispute of just the amount of involvement and the amount of playing time he's going to get in this offense. I don't think there was a ton going in, right, with how unproductive that tight end room was last year. And then you just add the 14th overall pick to that room. That it seems like it's unquestioned that he's the unquestioned starter. And but sometimes that doesn't happen with rookies, and sometimes they just kind of give him a little bit more room to breathe. But it hasn't been the case with Tyler Warren. He's been in there for every first team rep that he can get in there for. So that's awesome to see.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got Shane Steichen gushing about the kid, and he's going to be just so vital in providing the next starting quarterback a safety blanket. And that's just something that you did not have last year. Now the big question is, and I kind of want to get your opinion on this, and Paul Wilson's comment just made me think about this. I'm also always shocked at how many tight ends we keep every year. Why? So Drew Ogletree had a couple good plays. Will Mallory had a couple of good plays. Mo Alley-Cox, they just re-signed the guy, right? They're not going to part ways with Mo. But it really feels like Mo and Drew are A and B. You know what I mean? It feels like they each do the same thing. One's more experienced than the other, and one might be a skosh more athletic than the veteran. So what do you think of that? Do you think that, do you think the Colts are ridiculous for having 4 tight ends? Because it seems like they have the all-around guy in Warren. If you pick between Mo and Drew, you've got yourself the blocker. Yeah. And then you've got the vertical threat, the move tight end, and Will Mallory. Tell me about what you think about that. Are 4 tight ends too many?
Yeah, it's worth having the conversation. I think we did our 53-man roster predictions, and we kind of threw that idea out there a little bit. You kept 4 last year because you just didn't have the Tyler Warren type of guy in your room. You had Kylan Granson, Will Mallory, Drew Ogletree, Mo Alley Cox, all kind of guys you didn't really feel super good about. So you kind of interchange them depending on what the situation was and kind of throwing him in there. Tyler Warren, I think, does change that math for you a little bit, where you can have him in pretty much every situation and you don't necessarily need somebody specialized to fill that role. But at the same time, I mean, you're one play away from being right back where you were last year at tight end in the tight end room and having to fill in with those specialty guys. And you obviously want to see Tyler Warren go out there and have a full healthy season, but you have to at least be planning for the fact that he's not going to be available for every snap or every game. That's definitely a possibility with any player in any given NFL season. So you've got some guys. I think Mo Alley Cox is maybe a little bit more. I think he's probably more consistent as a pass catcher than Drew Ogletree is. I know they offer similar things in blocking. Mo Alley Cox, I think, is also the better blocker. I think he just seems to be like the older but a little bit better version of Drew Ogletree. I think Drew Ogletree's just shows to be a little bit too unreliable when it comes to catching the football and making himself available to catch the football. So I don't think he's going to give you much in the receiving game. And Mo Alley Cox is at least capable of some red zone targets and coming down with some tough grabs that way, some tough contested catches. And then really Will Mallory has been a guy who's been talked about a lot in camp. I know that it's Tyler Warren this, Tyler Warren that, because he's the shiny new toy, but Will Mallory is putting together a pretty solid camp. And if you're talking about a competition between Will Mallory and a guy like Jelani Woods, it does seem like Mallory's the guy running away with it.
Yeah, and Ogletree has struggled with a couple drops, right? But that's not surprising because his game against the Lions last year, man, I know it was just one play, but he dropped Richardson threw him the football and he was so open, it was quite honestly disgusting. Mm-hmm. And he was right in front of the end zone. Dude could have caught it and taken two steps backward and been in pay dirt. Drops the football. He's done that a couple times in camp. And actually, if you look at his stats from last year, his whole career, actually, 18 catches over 2 years out of 35 targets. He's just not an efficient pass catcher. He's just not. Like Drew Ogletree he's just not an efficient guy when it comes to being a weapon. The other side, I hate to say this, and I do hate to say this because at one point, I just really wanted him to succeed so bad, Noah. Jelani Woods, let's just say that he's there.
Yeah.
He's there at camp. He's healthy.
Which is an improvement over the last couple of years for Jelani Woods, at least saying that.
He's on the right track if you consider that a big success, which it is. But like Jelani Woods he feels it when I'm watching him, he looks clunky. He looks like a guy that is a jump ball dude, a red zone dude. He's got outrageous athleticism and he's actually pretty damn fast, but he just doesn't look like he's it, man. I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the practice squad or just doesn't make the roster. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine him beating out Ogletree, Alley Cox, Mallory, none of those guys.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it at this point. I think Mo Alley Cox and Drew Ogletree are your blockers. And while you think that Jelani Woods has the frame to be able to or when you drafted him, at least he did have that frame as somebody you thought could develop into that role. Never ended up really happening. And then Will Mallory's just being more dynamic and proving to be more available as a pass catcher in this training camp for that primary backup spot behind Tyler Warren. In terms of what he's going to be able to give you and being versatile at that position. There was definitely a lot of high hopes for Jelani Woods, but you mentioned he does look a little clunky, and I guess 2 years of pretty serious injuries and being off the field and out of practice for that long is going to do that. He was a 10.0 RAS guy when the Colts drafted him. I'd be interested to see what that number is now after the injuries have just kind of taken a little bit of a toll on his athleticism and his body. That jump ball stuff that he can give you, I think Mo Alley Cox is capable of giving you that as well. Maybe not as flashy or as dominant, but I think Mo Alley Cox offers you more in terms of a pass catcher at this point than Jelani Woods would, which is interesting to say because Mo Alley Cox is not the pass catching tight end. So I think Yeah, I think he had a uphill battle to climb. Jelani Woods did, just with the situation that he was, and it's great to see him healthy and on the field and practicing. I know we're only halfway through camp. We've got all 3 preseason games to go, so there is time for him to make an impression and turn some things around. But yeah, to this point, glad he's on the field, but just not doing enough to prove that he's worth a roster spot.
Yeah, and it sucks. It sucks because Jelani Woods he's one hell of an athlete, and maybe there's something for him down the road, but it's a grim reality in the NFL, and you got to be honest. He just doesn't look like he's rosterable for the Colts right now. So next, this one is great. Great news for anybody who was hoping, and it's actually what prompted me to put up number 10's jersey behind me, and that's A.D. Mitchell. His camp he's improving. Okay, really, really looked good on Saturday. Just things are starting to connect for the kid. And I remember asking him during interviews, I was like, what do you need to accomplish in your sophomore season so you can look back on this year and say that it was a success? And he just simply said, I have to take things day by day. He's like, I got to slow down. I wasn't doing that before. And he told the whole media, he was like, I was so focused on just run. You had the dude running the incorrect routes, dropping passes. He didn't really have a lot of contested catches, which is concerning.
Yeah.
I don't even have to look at his stat line. I know it by memory. 23 catches on 55 targets. It's just not going to cut it. And so, but he's looking good. He's looking like a dude who's starting to mature. He's starting to connect all of his skills. And he actually said, Noah, you talk about confidence here. He said, I know that I'm good. He's like, I know that I'm good. I know that if I'm left out there on an island with somebody, somebody's going to pay and it's not going to be me. That's what he said. So
confidence is never really anything AD's been short of. I remember his post-draft press conference. Obviously, there was a little bit of a chip on the shoulder due to the fall that he had, but I remember somebody asking him, how would you describe your play as a receiver? And he just said, the best. So he's never been short on confidence. It's good to see it actually taking some manifestation in his play throughout training camp. Because you mentioned him having that rough start to training camp, and I don't know if he's been in the wrong places or whatever, but he just hasn't been targeted a ton. And the times that he's been targeted, there's been some pretty key drops. It's obvious we talked about this last show where we need to see this in a preseason game when there's live bullets flying and there's contact happening. We need to see him prove it there, but it's good to see him do it in training camp and prove that it's not like starting to spiral and the confidence is going to get away from him. It's good to see he still has that confidence and swagger to him. He is making some plays, the deep ball catches in training camp these past few practices. And now it's time to just roll it over into these joint practices with the Ravens and into week 1.
Yeah. And I can't remember which reporter or media analyst. It might've been Joel A. Erickson from Indy Star. I can't remember. But one of them mentioned, something that was different about AD is a certain play when he caught one over the middle, and there was a linebacker sitting right there ready to tackle him, and instead he met the contact and spun away from it and kept going. And there's film where AD was avoiding contact literally like people did with the Black Plague. Okay, like he would I'll never forget it. He comes off the line, a guy runs through, the running play goes up the middle, luckily, but AD steps back. And you're just like, dude, it's no wonder you fell in the draft. Like, people saw that kind of crap and they were like, dude, no, we're not going to take that. We're not going to put you on the field. Especially when you got guys on the roster like Michael Pittman throwing blocks out there with a broken back, dude. Like, no one's going to accept that. So it was encouraging. AD's interviews, he's a real calm dude. He doesn't really give you a lot of personality, but he talked about how Reggie Wayne's been pushing him. He talked about how, he is taking things day by day. And I remember him actually telling me, he was like, I can't see the train. I can't see preseason game. I can't see the joint practices. He goes, I'll be honest with you, man. I'll be real with you. I can't even see the 2 p.m. meeting we're going to have here in a couple hours. All I can see is what I'm doing right now. And that's really good. That's really good. It's a lot of mental for him, but what do you think that this kid can accomplish? Because I'll just go ahead and say it. Like, yes, they have Josh Downs, they have Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, great. Tyler
Yeah.
Warren. I don't know if there's any wide receiver that's more explosive potentially than A.D. Mitchell. I mean, he's got pretty much all three of what I just mentioned with those three receivers. He's got all of that in one pass catcher.
Yeah, I mean, if you were building a receiver, it'd be kind of close to what you get with A.D. Mitchell in terms of his top end speed. He's got the size. I know he's a little bit on the lanky side. He's not exactly filled out like Michael Pittman Jr. is, but he does have the size. You want him to be able to step up, and handle that contact, meet that contact, make some contested catches. You're talking about upside with a guy, and this is a wide receiver room for the Colts that I think is in a lot of flux. Even though they've got these guys that you feel really good about, you like Michael Pittman as your option there. You love Josh Downs. Alec Pierce really took off last year and is having a really strong camp as well. But you've got Michael Pittman Jr.'s on that $20 million or $20 million a year deal, and you've got Alec Pierce in a contract year. Josh Downs is a year out from being eligible from that contract extension as well. So I mean, there's room for A.D. Mitchell to prove himself and very much make himself in play for the future of this Colts receiver room. I think that was when they drafted him. They had that vision. They brought him in to compete directly with Alec Pierce. I imagine at least somewhat in the back of their heads, they were envisioning if we have to move on from Alec Pierce at some point because of the investments we have in other places in the wide receiver room, this is the guy we want to fill that role. He just hasn't shown he was ready to do that in year one, but I think you can get a lot of overreaction from the fan base at that. If someone's not ready to fill in year one, I think the Colts were in a really good position where they had Alec Pierce just really step up and meet that level of competition that they brought in for him. And they didn't need to turn to A.D. Mitchell as much as they maybe envisioned they were going to have to. And he does have time to kind of develop a little bit, and they have time without that patience that they're preaching with Anthony Richardson, and Chris Ballard loves to preach about all the young guys. Reggie Wayne loves preaching patience with Alec Pierce and now A.D. Mitchell. I think it's just, they're in a good position to do that because of the depth that they have on the roster. So it's worth, even if you're super disappointed in some of the effort that he showed, or some of the lack of contested catches or shying away from contact, or whatever your reasons were for not liking A.D. Mitchell's performance. He has time to grow into that, and I think it's worth every second you're going to spend trying to invest in that for what he could be.
Yeah, and since we're on the subject of wide receiver, it's not just A.D. Mitchell, ladies and gentlemen, that is having a great camp as a pass catcher. Anthony Gould, is making a statement out there. And, Ashton Doolin has had great camp practices. Like, this is a loaded position this year for the Colts. And like you said, I mean, you can't, in 3 years, I'm sorry, you're probably, ladies and gentlemen, you might hope it, but you're not going to see Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, and Josh Downs all on the same team.
Yeah.
It's probably very unlikely because those are all guys that are going to command at least a contract similar to what Pittman has, where you're earning, $20 million a year. So guys like Gould, guys like Mitchell, this is their time to make a statement. This is their time to really show Indianapolis, hey, for Gould, I can be a backup to Josh Downs in the slot. For Mitchell, I can be a smorgasbord skill type receiver where I can do a lot of things for you. And I mean, it's been great. It's been very refreshing to see. So you're just honestly hoping that continues. And one more thing, Josh Downs on Saturday was catching everything. He was cooking the defense. Just boom, 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 boom. Just incredible.
Yeah, and that's more the speed that we expect from Josh Downs. I know his camp got off to a little bit of a slow start. Seemed like a lot of pass catchers were really having trouble holding onto the ball from whatever reason. Maybe just getting used to the new release of Anthony Richardson or a new quarterback in Daniel Jones, and maybe that needed some time to resonate with these guys. But it does seem like most of the pass catchers have really picked it up. I know it's training camp, whatever, but I do want to see more from Michael Pittman Jr. Maybe I don't need to see it in camp or the preseason, but I really hope when week one rolls around and he's back fully healthy now, that he can really have that impact. Because we talk about how good this Colts receiver room is. I think really the only criticism of it is they don't have that dominant number one receiver. Like I see Tony in the chat talking about Terry McLaurin, someone that you would want to go trade for. They don't have a guy like Terry McLaurin in the room right now. Michael Pittman maybe has the potential to be that guy, but to this point in his career, he hasn't really been. And you just kind of are what your past performances are until you prove otherwise. So I think Pittman has the opportunity to step up and be that number one guy. I don't know how far away he is from that. But yeah, I mean, it's just a really solid room. They don't really have that one, but really every piece that you like in that puzzle. You mentioned Anthony Gould, Ashton Doolin especially, I think is going to be fun to watch. They're definitely holding on to him, and he made that long touchdown reception with Anthony Richardson throwing the ball last year before his season came to a close. But yeah, I'm excited about all these guys there in that receiver room.
Yeah, and real quick, we'll just address it. Tony, no, they're not going to trade for Terry McLaurin. I mean, you'd have to give up a lot more than I think the Colts are willing, and I think they're very happy with their wide receiver room right now. But I will say, I mean, don't be surprised if this is just a tactic in the Terry McLaurin side of things, and let's just say this, Washington's going to keep him. They're going to get him a deal. They'd be stupid as hell to let a talent like that leave Jaden Daniels just as he's hitting superstardom. So I fully expect Terry McLaurin to stay in Washington. But so the next thing that we'll get to here is we'll actually switch it up here because one of these is very clear that we're going to get to it. So let's just go ahead and save it for last. But we're going to talk about these DBs, man. They're making plays. And the thing is, we did have a comment. Where was it? I can't. Oh, yeah. So is the cornerback room less interesting with the injuries? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. When I was there on Saturday, guys like Sam Womack making plays, guys like Justin Wally just continuing to make plays. With the uncertainty of Juju Brents and the injuries suffered by Jalen Jones, this isn't really that surprising. But Noah, tell me a little bit about what you think of this cornerback room, because look, Sam Womack he still has a chip on his shoulder. Yeah, he had a good season for a waiver pickup, but now he's got to do it again, right? Yeah. And Justin Wally, I mean, he's making us all look really stupid so far for calling him a C+ draft pick. And what were the Colts thinking? Could have used a defensive tackle. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen and what this could potentially mean, even if or when Jones and Brents return to the roster.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a super competitive room. We were talking about who might make the roster. There's going to be some tough cuts there. They've already moved on from Corey Ballantyne, which was in the news and rumors, but we're talking about DBs anyway. That was a guy they guaranteed $500,000 for to make the roster. Then you have guys coming in. Justin Wally, I'm sure, played into that decision a little bit with how well he's showing out. You could bump Sam Womack down a little bit and play that special teams role that maybe you envisioned for Corey Ballantyne. But yeah, there's just people making people expendable is what happens when you have young players and new players coming in and performing really well, like Charvarius Ward and Justin Wally are. Less interesting. I wouldn't say it's less interesting. I think it's maybe a little bit more interesting because you get to see guys that, I mean, I was excited to see Jalen Jones because I'm a Jalen Jones fan, but I think we're going to see so much more of Justin Wally now with Juju Brents and Jalen Jones out. So I'm really interested in that. I do want to see Sam Womack and see if he can kind of continue to put up a good performance like he did last season and kind of build on the last season, which was definitely a career year, an outlier for what he had been previously in his NFL career. I hope the injuries aren't bad because it really made the room deep with Jalen Jones and the potential of Juju Brents maybe being able to fill in and play a prominent role for you. Juju Brents really came into camp hot and was competing for those outside corner number 1 spots or outside corner number 2 spots beside Charvarius Ward. They were kind of filtering in Justin Wally, Jalen Jones, Juju Brents, all those guys were getting those reps. So that competition is definitely less interesting to watch now just because you don't get the chance to see it. But in terms of the long-term future of this position, I think it's maybe even a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, and hey, this is such a critical position too because Anarumo's scheme is so heavily dependent on good safety and good cornerback play. And it's not to take away from the D line or the linebackers, but that's just the way that it is. And so, you're looking at this situation, and Justin Wally has been a revelation. I mean, he's gone out there, he's made plays, he's been consistent, he's been in the right place at the right time. You've even had guys like Jonathan Edwards out there, playing. So they just recently reacquired, I guess you could say, Chris Lamons, and then they went out and they got Trey Herndon and they got Duke Shelley. I mean, this is a team that is like, even if, all those guys don't even make the roster, you can't take it, with any less, amount of serious, because when you don't have Jalen Jones, when you don't have Juju Brents, one of those guys is a bona fide starter. The other one is a guy that has starter potential and has, honestly, maybe even start potential if he's not injured all the time. When those guys aren't playing, it is just such a massive void left to fill. So Womack and Wally, they are getting it. You never want to say that it's good, right? You never want to say it's good that someone gets hurt, because it's not. But it does open up a door of opportunity for someone else in the NFL. And look, man, with a guy like Juju Brents, this is just honesty. We have to say this. And tell me what you think, Noah. Given his injury history, given the fact that the dude just seemingly can't move without getting hurt, and given the fact that now Ward is on the roster, Justin Wally's showing out, Sam Womack is a dog. Is he the most skilled cornerback? Is he the fastest? No, but he sure as hell seems to make plays when they're needed. When you got guys like that, man, coaches are going to start looking at Juju Brents like, look, man, you got to earn your spot now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I feel like we were, before training camp started, I was very much in that boat. And then it just
didn't you have him not making the roster?
I think I had him. I chickened out at the last second. I kept him because I didn't want to. I was a coward and didn't want to cut him, which I think is maybe ending up what the Colts are thinking. I mean, they were willing to give him those first team reps, willing to give him every chance he can get to make an impact on the lineup and show that he's valuable. That Juju Brents injury and Jalen Jones injuries, I know. It seems like the Jalen Jones injury is maybe a little bit more serious than Juju's is. Maybe that means Juju gets back sometime this training camp and in preseason he gets some more reps. I do think that, well, one, that's a good sign. Hopefully that he's back on the field ASAP. But also, before we even talked and we were doing that roster prediction and those cuts, I was really debating back and forth between Corey Ballantyne and Juju Brents. And Corey Ballantyne gave you that special teams ability. Apparently, they're not so worried about that right now. So maybe that's a good sign for Juju Brents as well. One of those guys that really I envisioned him competing with that maybe cornerback 6 spot for. He's gone now. That competition's gone. You brought in some other guys like Trey Herndon, Duke Shelley. Maybe some of these guys can bump him. Chris Lamons, they obviously like him enough to bring him back. So I mean, there's still definitely competition there, but I feel like the biggest competition he had for those back end spots, he's either been getting more snaps or out snapping them in training camp while he was on the field, or they've just been outright released. So I think it is a good sign for him. He just needs to get back on the field as soon as he can.
Yeah, so keep an eye on defensive back fans. I mean, it's an ever-developing, constantly rotating position where guys like Wally and guys like Womack are getting a real chance to make a statement that they belong on this roster or that they should start, right? So this next one, I actually asked Lou Anarumo about this guy, and he gushed about him, and that's Joe freaking Bocci. Is out there making plays when Jalen Carlies isn't. Okay, so it's not to say that Carlies isn't a starter, but no one's been talking about Jalen Carlies and what he's been doing on the training camp field. It has been constantly Joe Bocci. Yeah. Dude just goes out there nonchalant, no big deal on Saturday, gets another interception. Okay, like all he's doing is making plays. And I asked Anarumo, Bocci looks like he might be a legitimate starter at linebacker. What are your thoughts on him? What are your thoughts on his training camp? And he basically said, Joe is a fantastic player. He's like, he started for us in Cincinnati. It wasn't just him starting either. He was wearing the green dot, which means he was in command. He was making calls at the second level. He said he's in the right place. He's going to be in the right place far more often than he isn't. And he said he's a great guy. He makes plays. He works hard. You can tell not only did Lou Anarumo command this guy to come to the Colts for the Colts to sign him, but Joe Bocci looks like he thrives in Lou Anarumo's scheme. And I'll be blunt with you, man. Me and Jake Arthur, we had actually mentioned this. I think Andrew Moore was also there on the sideline. I wouldn't be surprised anyway if he starts getting some looks at being a starter next to Zaire Franklin. He's making plays, dude.
Yeah. So I really wanted to do this unofficial depth chart that they released today and go over these, but we're just kind of hitting every position anyway. This is a good opportunity because I want to talk about a lot of those things at linebacker that we found out. I mean, the unofficial depth chart, obviously not gospel. It's written in pencil. It's not written by coaches, whatever. But yeah, sure. I mean, it's worth having this conversation now where we went into this offseason saying Zaire Franklin, Jalen Carlisle, they're year 1-2. I don't know if that's clear anymore. I think Jalen Carlisle might be 4. If you're talking about Joe Bocci, Cameron McGrone, which, I mean, maybe that's
They've both had good camps.
Yeah, they've had good camps there. Even that unofficial depth chart had McGrone listed as the starting will. We know Joe Bocci's really getting a ton of snaps. He was with Zaire Franklin out as that backup Mike. Maybe they just want him on the field and they're willing to play him in that will position also. So, yeah, Joe Bocci, very much a guy that could take over and have a really strong role. You're playing 2 linebackers at a time. Those linebackers that are on the field are going to be taking like 90% of the defensive snaps at any given game. So this is that's a prominent role. It's not like nickel corner or rotational end or whatever. This is somebody who's almost always on the field for you. And Joe Bocci, I mean, he's been in the league 5 years. 4 of his 5 were with Lou Anarumo. I think he's only played around 200 snaps on the defensive side of the ball. He's been mostly a special teamer. But I mean, yeah, when you're in a system for 4 years, you really get to know the coach, and the coach goes somewhere else and brings you with him. That's usually a good sign. And then, yeah, just that opportunity early on with Jalen Carlisle and Zaire Franklin out. He really took advantage of that. I think McGrone and Bocci both really took advantage of the fact that they had those snaps given to them early because they were the best ones for the job at that point. I think the coaches have really gotten comfortable with the idea of them being on the field for them right now. So yeah, Joe Bocci is someone who's been flashing forever. We don't talk about Cameron McGrone as much, but I think he's very much in that mix as well with starting linebacker. And Jalen Carlisle he's a second-year player it's only a second-year playing linebacker. He was a former 5th-round pick. I mean, it's not – I kind of said that while we were going through this offseason, like they're putting a lot on him to bank on him being the starter. Maybe they just weren't banking on that as much as we thought they were.
Yeah, and the thing is, Anarumo was also asked about Cameron McGrone.
Yeah,
and he not as much as Bocci. I mean, that makes sense. But he gushed about him too. So. Look, Anarumo is an interesting interview because when they asked him, and I'll take a second to pull it up. I might throw something over to you while I do, but they asked him what he thought of Jonathan Edwards getting some starter reps and stuff like that. And, he just isn't really a guy he's not going to go out there and say, oh, well, someone sucks or, someone's not good. He's not going to do that. Hold on a second. Here we go. Beautiful. So Jonathan Edwards, do you like what you've seen so far? So tell me if I'm wrong, Noah. Isn't he a rookie undrafted free agent?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, he's a rookie. Rookie corners will go through ups and downs, both in practice and in the preseason games. So got some guys nicked up. All those guys will get reps. So we'll see where it goes with him. That is a coach that in layman's terms is saying, I don't really care. Like he's basically saying, I don't really want him out there, but he has to because we have so many freaking injuries in the DB room. So Lou Anarumo is not going to sugarcoat a damn thing. He's from Staten Island. Every player you ask about, what has he brought to the defense? They say, well, he's a tough guy.
Yeah.
He's a tough guy. He commands and he will yell. I mean, he is no joke. That dude's way different than Gus Bradley. So when he says something about Cameron McGrone, when he says something about Joe Bocci, Leatu Latu, any of those guys, and he gushes about them, that means something. He's not just giving you coach speak. Mm-hmm. So do you think that maybe he's kind of looking at Jalen Carlisle as like, I definitely can tell you're more of a safety that plays linebacker.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a defensive scheme that's already prioritizing having actual DBs on the field. So they're going to be in 5 and 6 DB sets a lot of the time. Maybe they'll people that you have in that linebacker role when you're running that defense are people that you want to be a little bit more reliable in the run game, and you're not as worried as much about pass coverage, although the plays that Joe Bocci's been making have been in pass coverage through training camp, so maybe he's got that locked down as well. Really, we've always kind of said that about Lou Anarumo when he came in. Is a guy that, like, it doesn't tend to play young guys early, or doesn't, like, if there's another option, he usually goes the other option. We just didn't see Joe Bocci really as that option because of his past of his 5-year career of being mostly a special teams guy. We didn't really see him as a guy who could come in and potentially compete for that starting job. But I think even more so, we're going to get into the depth chart a little bit later, but Tanner Bordellini is listed as the starter over Danny Pinter on that depth chart. He's a young guy over a veteran. Jalen Carlisle didn't get that in the unofficial depth chart that came out. Cameron McGrone's over him. Joe Bocci is the second team at Mike. So if Jalen Carlisle was entrenched in that starting spot, I think we would have seen that in that depth chart. We would be seeing that in these reps. We would be seeing or hearing the coaches talk about that. He would be the ones that people are giving questions to Lou Anarumo about after the practices. I think we came into training camp thinking that wasn't going to be as much as a competition as it was. And I think it's time to start realizing maybe it is.
Yeah. And, it's going to be a position to watch. I mean, linebacker is very, very key. And yes, they're going to have two guys out there mostly. But the question now is who's going to stand next to Zaire? That's the question now. It's not who's going to back up Carlisle and Zaire. It's who's going to stand next to Franklin. So I love the fact, Paul, that you brought up Laiatu Latu, because that is actually our next subject here, and he has been dominant, Paul. He has looked every bit of a first-round selection. He's looked every bit of the first defensive player taken in the 2024 NFL draft, man. Just really, really showing out. You can tell that he wants to be the best, which every player does. But, man, Latu's really showing that he has started to make that second-year jump. And, people always people absolutely will just throw a heyday over 10 sacks. Look, if this dude goes out there, he gets 8 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 50 quarterback pressures, forces 4 or 5 fumbles.
Yeah.
That's a damn good season. That's still a solid season. But especially that Thursday night practice where the lights were on and the fireworks literally, and Warren caught that sexy pass. I mean, Latu had 3 sacks. I mean, Noah, Latu looks, let's just say this, he looks great. He looks great so far in camp, and I think that there's a lot of reasons for Colts fans and that coaching staff to be excited about him.
Yeah, a lot of reasons for it. Yeah, and that's like the guy you're looking for on the defensive side of the ball that you want to make that jump. Obviously, Nick Cross maybe did that last year. You hope that Latu's the Nick Cross of this year, someone who can really take their game up a whole other level, and because that's what they're missing, right? They're missing that dominant pass rusher on the outside. Kwity Paye's a really good starting defensive end for you, who's going to give you maybe 7 or 8 sacks and be a really reliable run defender for you. You need the guy like Latu to come out and be a threat pretty much on every passing down to apply pressure to the quarterback. So we're looking to see these dominant performances. I think you mentioned 3 sacks on Thursday, and he's been good. I'm excited to see him go these one-on-ones against the Ravens and joint practices. Preseason game. I'm just excited to see the one-on-ones there. We're not obviously going to see a ton of schemed up stuff for him in terms of stunts. And so I'm not expecting a ton of numbers for him, but I'm just going to want to watch him individually and how he's lining up against these tackles and how consistently he's able to win. Cause I think the defense really, the ceiling is raised a lot depending on how he performs this upcoming season. I think he's really the linchpin that can take this defense from solid to really, really good.
Yeah, and this is back from his rookie season, okay? And I know that his rookie season, people are kind of like, hey, all right, 4 sacks, whoop-de-doo. 2 things stand out. One is a game where the Colts got their asses kicked, and another is just simply a stat line. The 3 fumbles forced is awesome for a rookie, okay? One of those was a game-sealing one against Caleb Williams. The others were all critical moments. I mean, anytime you force a fumble, or a strip sack, anything like that, it's okay. Let's say a ball carrier takes a handoff, runs through the gaps, gets plastered, drops the football. Okay, fumble forced. If it's recovered by your team, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's a statement. But there's something to be said, Noah, when a defensive edge dusts off a tackle, gets to the quarterback and forces that quarterback, doesn't even touch him, just knocks the ball out of his hand. That gets into the head of a quarterback. And I'm telling you, man, Latu has that ability. And another thing is, it was against the Lions. Everyone talks about Penei Sewell, absolute monster. I mean, the guy is not just a monster physically. He is an incredible tackle with quick feet. He's got violent hands. I mean, he just destroys edge rushers. In that game, Latu dusted this dude off and left him in the background. Okay. Latu has bend, speed off the line of scrimmage. He will constantly throw things at you. If he tries to chop, he can't get it. He'll start spinning. If he can't get it through a spin, he'll try to upcut and go underneath. The dude will constantly continue to throw weapons at you. So he could be a problem. I mean, if he goes out there, man, and he keeps hitting that stride, Charlie Partridge can help him. He adjusts well in Anarumo's scheme. I mean, I don't know, Noah. I personally think, like Josh Downs we talk about has year 3 breakout written all over him. I really do think Latu has year 2 breakout written all over him.
Yeah, there's a lot of defensive ends that are going out there and just trying to rely on their athleticism to beat these tackles. And Latu has that athleticism, but even like coming into the draft, you knew he was a little bit different because the only thing that he's talking about is how he's just constantly watching videos of how to refine his pass rush moves and add more moves to his repertoire. And so he could just get in his bag on these third downs and really pull out all the stops to get to the quarterback. So he has that athletic ability to do it. You've seen him do it against some top tackles. I want to see that more at a consistent rate against some of these top tackles, and I want to see him finish the plays. And he's talked about that himself in some of these interviews, how he thinks he's put in the work this offseason to really have an uptick in terms of the ways he finishes plays and turning some of those pressures into hits and turning some of those hits into sacks and really taking his production to the next level. So I think he has the repertoire to do it. He's always had the repertoire, and it seems like he's building on that a little bit more. Year 2 just seems like the prime time for him to make that jump and get to that next level where he can finish all those plays.
Yeah, and so we'll go ahead and kind of get through this next one pretty brief, even though it's incredibly important. But first, Teresa, put that in the freezer or something, okay? Like, I mean, it's not cold yet. Your apple juice needs to be cold. I mean, hey, you can't put that into a frosty mug, at room temp. So let's step it up there, Teresa. Just kidding. I'm kidding. I know what you mean. But yeah, this next one is huge. The quarterback performances have been unsteady, and really, what we mean by unsteady is that word can be perceived as negative. That's not the case. We're actually saying that it's just not been great. Like, each quarterback has had days where they're high, others have had days where they're low. Both have sucked on the same day. Both have looked great on the same day. Honestly, man, it's really difficult to say who has a lead, but I would assume it's Anthony Richardson. I really would.
I think it's interesting how we talked about this last week, how it seemed like all the quarterbacks were having bad days on the same days and good days on the same days. Seems like that just keeps happening. Or rough days yesterday for both the quarterbacks and some good days before. Yeah, it's really hard to separate the two right now, which I think you do feel a little uneasy about. You would hope that somebody would come away and prove to be a little bit more consistent. You were thinking, I think at this point in the season, that Daniel Jones would be that guy that would separate a little bit earlier because you don't have that benefit that Anthony Richardson gets of being able to use his body physically to really make plays in the run game and be a threat, like breaking tackles in the pocket. They're not getting touched. So this should be where Daniel Jones is kind of stepping away with it, you would think, but that's not happening. And maybe that's good news for Anthony Richardson and that he's able to keep up with a guy like Daniel Jones, or maybe it's bad news that Daniel Jones hasn't been able to separate and isn't really taking that next step, that Sam Darnold level of uptick in production that people were hoping for or predicting. You want to have that answer. I think the Colts probably have that answer internally of who they think they're leaning on right now. They're obviously not going to make that public. Even if it was Anthony Richardson, I think most people would probably be excited to hear that Anthony Richardson's getting the nod as the starter. But even if the Colts know it's Anthony Richardson, I don't think they're going to let him take anything for granted. They're going to let this competition go really down to the wire and keep him motivated all the way through it, and probably have that fire underneath him throughout the entire season, knowing Daniel Jones is waiting in the wings if he takes any days off or is a little bit lackluster in his preparation or anything like that. I like having that fire under under Anthony Richardson like that. Just there's no clarity on the quarterback position. I didn't know if there would be here in halfway through training camp, but I think maybe just how even it's been is a little bit surprising still.
Yeah, and I got cooked on X for this, and rightfully, I deserved it. I said at camp, I said Daniel Jones is cooking, and I said 10 of 14, 3 touchdowns, and he was, but I didn't clarify that I was talking about 11 on 11s, because I really don't take too much stock in 7 on 7s, and somebody absolutely cooked me by saying, well, what about the 7 on 7s? Jones threw 2 interceptions during that with no pass rush.
Yeah.
Good point. What am I supposed to say to that? No, I'm right. Like, hey, even an analyst, a professional writer and reporter can admit when they're wrong. Jones has not, he's not necessarily looked like a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
That's the thing is Richardson at times, Jones operates the offense, but look, the Colts need Richardson to pan out. They need him to do it this year. Now, if people have forgotten, they did also commit to him next year. They're like, hey, look, if he sucks this season, we're not going to give up on him. We're not. They absolutely said that if it doesn't work out, we're going to continue to try. And so I would dare say that, yes, the Colts want Richardson to pan out. Steichen in an interview said that the quarterback battle is neck and neck, but there's 3 things you can get from Steichen when he's going to answer your question. You're going to get a shoot this, shoot that. You're going to get fired up about something. It could be anything. And then you're going to get absolute ambiguity.
Yeah.
Like the dude is respect the hell out of him. Just not, if you're trying to get something, that's not the guy to talk to. So it's going to be interesting. I do think that Anthony Richardson, though, Noah, I really do think he's got the lead. I would honestly be surprised. I would be surprised if they went with Daniel Jones.
Yeah. At this point, if Daniel Jones is completing a little bit better, short and intermediate, but not by a ton, I think what he lacks for you in the deep passing game that Anthony Richardson does give you is not worth that trade-off there, right? You're going to go with the guy who can give you those explosive plays at a little bit higher rate. Not to mention, Daniel Jones is an underrated athlete as a runner. I think can give you some things in the run game, but when you're standing next to Anthony Richardson, everyone's just going to, it's not close really in terms of what you can give him as a runner when you have Anthony Richardson as your competition there. So yeah, he just really has to perform. He needs to find a day where Anthony Richardson is struggling on those short and intermediate routes, and he needs to be the one that steps up and shows that he can move the offense consistently. And then I think he does need to hit on some of those deep shots a little bit more often. Anthony Richardson's definitely willing to do those in the game. I think they're both going to be drilling these in practice, whatever, because they're scripted and you're taking those deep shots. But I think come these preseason games, you want to see that from Daniel Jones. You not only want to see him be able to hit these things consistently on the short and intermediate routes, but you want to see him be willing to take some of these deep shots. Even if some of them aren't panning out, I just want to see that willingness to take some of those shots.
All right, we're going to stop talking about quarterbacks. We've got other things to get to, so I guess we'll move on. But yeah, so at the end of the day, people, we'll just say this: Jones needs, I guess, he needs to run away with this competition to start. Okay, like he needs to show, head and shoulders that he is just better than Richardson. At the end of the day, he hasn't. So it's very much it's close. So I anticipate Richardson's going to start. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and knock out the highlights of the preseason week 1 unofficial depth chart, aka just an absolute about the loosest depth chart you can possibly assemble. Yeah. It means nothing almost. What really stands out, though, since we just talked about it, is Daniel Jones. It's the only one on the whole roster, Noah, that says Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson Sr. What do you think? Like, if you see Daniel Jones trot out there first series, what do you think that means?
Nothing. I think whoever gets the
Exactly.
whoever gets the first snaps here and it is starting in Baltimore. I don't know that it matters. They're going to have some sort of strategy for how they want to see Anthony Richardson with this set of linemen, or Anthony Richardson with these receivers out on the field, or Daniel Jones with it. It's just going to be how they're evaluating it. And I don't think we're going to necessarily learn who's in the lead with the quarterback competition, depending on who's out there in the first drive, because I think it's pretty much a guarantee whoever is out there for the first drive of week 1 of the preseason is going to be the backup there for week 2 of the preseason. I think they're going to rotate both of those. They're both going to get an opportunity to start one preseason game. So I don't think it necessarily matters whether it's week 1 or 2. And really, fans shouldn't read too much into that, regardless of what happens there. And I think I love seeing the oars on the depth charts, because they're tiptoeing and trying not to make anybody upset by accidentally declaring a starter. So I love seeing that. Daniel Jones' name was listed first, I guess, if we're reading into it, but I think that is alphabetically. Anthony's before Daniel, but Jones is before Richardson. There's just too much to read into here. I don't know.
Yeah, like, something else that does stand out is, you do have, like you mentioned, you've got Cameron McGrone ahead of Jalen Carlies. You've got Zaire Franklin, but then you have Joe Bocci backing him up immediately. Another one that does stand out is, dude, on the outside cornerback, it is Justin Wally.
Yeah,
is just by himself. Then it's Jalen Jones. Of course, they put an asterisk and say that Brenton Jones have been dealing with hamstring injuries. But something else I want to talk about is, one of the best interviews that you will find on the Colts coaching staff is special teams coordinator Brian Mason. He literally broke down the percentages of Spencer Schrader and Max Trujillo. And something that really was interesting is Spencer Schrader is so far ahead in this competition, man. Yeah. He is dominating. And I think that I don't have the transcripts, but Brian Mason said he's basically around 87% for camp. They want him around 90.
Yeah.
So he's damn near there. He's right on the cusp of doing it. But really, another one that really stands out to me is backup running back. You've got Tyler Goodson.
Yeah.
Then you have DJ Giddens. Then you have Khalil Herbert. Then you have Ulysses Bentley IV. That's the one I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
Does that mean anything to you? Because look, Tyler Goodson, ladies and gentlemen, he is not going anywhere. And go read Zach Hicks's piece on Tyler Goodson. It's chef's kiss type of stuff. He is such a damn good special teamer. He's going absolutely nowhere. Yeah. And if he can etch out a place in this running back core when you just signed Herbert, you just drafted Giddens, that's pretty impressive considering what he did a couple of years ago against the Texans.
Yeah. I think it's worthwhile to think about. Again, these depth charts aren't written by coaches. They're written by the media team for the Colts. So it's hard to tell whether these are people that are around the team and are seeing some things. So they're putting best educated guesses on these things. But yeah, you usually see like young guys down lower on the depth chart a little bit. But yeah, I was surprised that Khalil Herbert was below DJ Giddens, a rookie. There. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's up in the air. I think we've been considering this RB2 battle between Khalil Herbert and DJ Giddens. I think DJ Giddens is likely still the RB2 and will likely be getting most of those snaps. The Khalil Herbert's definitely going to be in the mix, but I think maybe, Tyler Goodson is a little bit more in the mix than we thought. But yeah, he's definitely a guy that's going to be on the roster. Like you mentioned, Zach Hicks article where he's going over the special teams ability and plus his ability as an offensive piece that can be a little bit useful for you, especially when you're trying to limit the workload of Jonathan Taylor a little bit. So yeah, he's going to be on the roster, and just by being on the roster and being a running back, you are just naturally available to take some of those snaps. So I think, it'll be interesting to see. And I think maybe you get a little bit more of an indication of where people might be on the depth chart. You're not looking into it too much at quarterback because you don't know who's starting between Richardson and Jones. But I think when you get into those rotation lines there at some of the other positions, then you do kind of see how the Colts are penciling that in right now.
Yeah. And that's a position to watch. There's the unofficial depth chart, man. We don't even need to go into it any further. It's a lot of fog. Let's just say that.
Two other things on the depth chart I want to hit real quick, though.
Do it.
And that was Tanner Bortolini over Danny Pinter. like I mentioned, you usually see the veterans above the young guys if it's a position battle, or you get the big or like you do it there at quarterback. They've got Bortolini in there, slotted at center. Does that mean anything? I don't know. Something to monitor, though. So we'll definitely be watching that come the preseason game to see who's out there with that first team as we'll continue throughout the preseason. And then the other thing that I wanted to throw out there is, man, this whole offseason when we were concerned about quarterback, we were like, who's playing behind Kenny Moore? And with Jalen Jones and Juju Brents both out, Justin Wally is that starting outside corner, and you're back to square one. They're behind Kenny Moore at nickel. They've got Alex Johnson, Ladarius Tennyson. I think that's why they went out and signed Chris Lamons. Ladarius Tennyson, by the way, an undrafted free agent safety, listed in there at the depth chart at nickel. So yeah, and then that's why I think you went out and got Chris Lamons, who's played for this organization at nickel before. Really looking rough at that spot. So you want those outside corners to come back, so you do have a little bit more flexibility at that nickel spot.
Yeah, I mean, just keep an eye on the preseason game. The preseason game, this one's going to be big, not necessarily for the quarterback position, but guess what? We're going to get to this at the actually, first, before we get to the final thing, because we'll have to like really hammer this out. Salvon Ahmed, very, very brutal injury. Got hip drop tackled by Trey Washington. Was really in a lot of pain to the point where they brought a stretcher out for him. He was immobile. He couldn't move. He couldn't get up and move.
Yeah.
Screamed. I don't know if he screamed the F word because of like how much pain he was in, but let's just say it was awful. It's not good.
Yeah.
This is the kind of injury that you just, it's the dark side of football, and it's what you risk. And it really makes you look at some of these guys, Noah, like, yeah, okay, they're millionaires. They've got an opportunity to entertain people. But, man, this is really what they risk every single day when they're out there on the field.
Yeah, and you want that depth. I know you're excited about DJ Giddens, Ulysses Bentley, even everybody's been clamoring for. But Salvon Ahmed's a guy who was on the practice squad for the Colts last year. He's been with the team. He knows the system. He's a reliable guy to have around. Also valuable on special teams if he's on the game day roster. Someone like Tyler Goodson there in that sense. Played with the Dolphins, been a journeyman. He's probably getting up there to where that if you have a serious injury there at running back, it's hurting you a little bit more because of the age that he's in, the length of time that he's been in the league. So really sucks for him see an injury like that. I was there for Reese Fountain in training camp. He dislocated his ankle. That was a rough one too. That's the last time
he was a wideout, right?
Yeah. So then that one ended his season. That's the last time I saw training camp practice just come to a halt, and just because of the severity of the injury. So yeah, rough to see. Obviously hate that. Anybody on the roster, you hate to see that.
Yeah. So prayers are up for Salvon Ahmed, and just hoping that, yes, you want him to return to the NFL. I just want everything to be okay with him health wise.
Yep.
That's number one. That's first and foremost. He's probably got enough money that he could, potentially just call it a career, but we'll have to see what happens with him. I know that the Colts are also supporting the hell out of him, but we're going to knock this out super duper quick. Noah, What are you looking for in this preseason game?
Gotcha. I think we hit most of what we were looking for while we were going over these things. So we'll just kind of highlight it briefly. Don't care about the quarterback competition in terms of who's starting, but I want to see Daniel Jones be willing to take deep shots just as much as I want to see Anthony Richardson consistently hitting those short passes. On the offensive side of the ball, continuing on with that, I guess Bortolini and Pinter. It seems like Bortolini is the one getting the start there. I want to see Matt Gonsalves really in his first snaps at guard and see with the first unit at least, and see how that's turning out. A.D. Mitchell, I want to see him get hit by a receiver and hold on to a football is kind of what I'm watching there. I don't know. Tyler Warren, I don't know if I need to see that much. I expect him to play like he's been practicing in training camp, so I'm not necessarily holding my breath to see something there. And then, on the DB side, I want to see Justin Wally play. Now, I mean, the Colts have been hyping him up since he got in the building. I want to see him go out there and guard somebody with a different color jersey and see how it ends up. I'm excited about the young DBs outside of Jalen Jones and Juju Brents. I'm excited to see what else they've got on the roster and the chance that they get it. And I'm excited to see Lou Anarumo's new scheme for the first time and see these guys flying around in a scheme that's not the super conservative shell of Gus Bradley's scheme that we've been seeing for the last few years. So yeah, there's a ton. It's not going to be super in-depth. You're not scheming up for your opponent, but I do want to see a little bit some of the basics that they're going to be running there with Anarumo.
Well, there you have it, guys. That is our show. Don't forget to like the Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow Indianapolis Colts on SI. Of course, on X, we are at Colts_SI. Subscribe to Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube and click that bell to turn on all your notifications. And of course, if you want to listen to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast, we've got you covered. Subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Guys, training camp is starting to wrap up. Joint practices against the Ravens kick off. The preseason kicks off on Thursday. Ladies and gentlemen, rejoice. Colts football is upon us. We will be back. We'll figure out what day. We're not going to be airing the show on Thursday. Obviously, the game is going to take precedent over that, but we will figure out probably post. We're going to do it after the game at some point during the week. But guys, until then, enjoy your Monday. Enjoy your week. Tune into Colts football on Thursday, and by the time that we go live again, air out all your thoughts, and we'll talk about it then. Everyone, have a wonderful week. We'll see you later.